This program is sponsored by the DeKalb County Public Library. We invite you to explore our online resources and virtual programs at dkalblibrary.org. Hi, I'm Becky Streepy from Glue and Glitter, and welcome to Vegan 101 presented by the DeKalb County Public Library. I am excited today to walk you through 2 simple vegan recipes and talk to you a little bit about how to start eating more plant-based food or go totally vegan. If you're new to eating plant-based, it can feel a little bit tricky, but it absolutely doesn't have to be. I know that if you're used to eating kind of like a meat and 3 style of meal, you take the meat away and all you're left with is veggies, and that might not feel like the most nutritious situation. For me, going vegan really was all about reimagining my plate, where I might have gotten my protein, for example, from fish or from another animal. Now I get my protein from things like beans, from tofu. You also can get protein from other plant foods. Potatoes have protein, broccoli has protein, corn has protein. In fact, if you're eating a variety of plant-based foods, protein isn't really a concern. Of course, you do want to talk to your doctor before switching to a plant-based diet, just to make sure that everything is cool, because any large dietary change like that is something worth talking to your doctor about. I am not a nutritionist, so I'm not going to have a long segment here about vegan nutrition. Instead, I want to point you to 2 vegan RDs who I always turn to when I'm looking for information on vegan nutrition to answer people's questions. The first is Ginny Messina. She is amazing. She's written a ton of books about going vegan, including Vegan for Her, and there's a book that she's written, in fact, about going vegan as a senior, so I think she's a great resource. The other nutritionist that I really love is Jack Norris, RD. He's also written several books, and his site is just a bounty of vegan nutrition information. In addition to rethinking your protein sources, you also want to rethink your grocery shopping, because you're not hitting the meat section, right? So you're going to want to stock up on things like canned beans, whole grains, which P.S., tons of protein in something like quinoa, which we'll be using in just a minute. Stock up on fresh and frozen vegetables, things like kale, broccoli, bell peppers, cauliflower, carrots. Start experimenting. And I think one of the most exciting parts about going vegan is that you get to explore different kinds of food that maybe you wouldn't have tried previously, because, you know, we kind of get into a cooking groove where we're making the same things all the time. And when you go vegan, you get to kind of break out of that rut and just really explore. That said, it can be really helpful for people who are just going vegan to learn how to veganize their current favorite dishes. So for example, if you really like a lasagna, try making yourself a plant-based lasagna. You can either use vegan ground beef if you want to, or you can leave out the ground beef and replace it with something like riced cauliflower. You could replace it with white beans. Kind of take your old favorites and then figure out ways to make them plant-based. Vegan cheese, for example, has come a long way. You know, when I went vegan in 2006, vegan cheese was terrible. I understand why it has the reputation it has, because it was bad. But it is no longer bad. You can make that lasagna with just vegan shreds. Brands like Daiya, Follow Your Heart, So Delicious, all make vegan cheese shreds. Ooh, Violife is another one that a lot of people really love. You can try different brands. They all have different, tastes to them, just like dairy cheeses do, and see which ones do it for you. I'm sure you'll find one that you like. Another area that can be tricky for people who are new to plant-based eating is snacking. If you're used to like kind of dairy-based snacks, finding your new favorite snacks can take a little bit of time. Personally, I like to snack on things like roasted nuts. We always keep cashews around the house, and almonds. We snack on dairy-free yogurt, carrots, and hummus. Just like with meals, think about your favorite snacks and then try to think about ways to veganize them. And of course, if you ever need help veganizing anything, I am always available. You can find my contact information on my website, glueandglitter.com. Send me a list of your favorite foods and let me figure out how to make them vegan for you. That's one of my favorite games and I'd love to help. All right, y'all, so let's get cooking. The first recipe that we're going to make is a quinoa salad with cranberries, and it's in a citrus vinaigrette. The vinaigrette is super easy. You actually make it right in your blender. It takes maybe 5 minutes, maybe 7 if you juice the citrus yourself, but if you use bottled juice, 5 minutes tops. Y'all, this salad has it all. It has earthy quinoa, creamy avocado, it's got a little bit of green onion, sweet dried cranberries, and what really punches up the flavor is this tart, sweet citrus vinaigrette. You are going to love this recipe. This salad works great as an appetizer, but it's also great on its own. I've been eating just big bowls of it for lunch every day, and it is a real delight. Let's get into it. The first thing that you want to do is make the citrus vinaigrette. You're going to make this dressing right in the blender. It takes just a few minutes to make. So grab your blender and add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice and a 1/4 cup of orange juice. You can use bottled juices for these, but I recommend fresh if you have fresh fruit around. It just gives it even more of that delicious citrus flavor. Next, you'll add a 1/4 cup of olive oil, a tablespoon of maple syrup, a clove of garlic, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Then it's time to blend. Puree that dressing until it is completely smooth. Not that this takes a long time, you just want to check the dressing and be sure that you've done it. Maybe grab a fork, and see if you can scoop up any garlic, because what nobody wants is a hunk of raw garlic in their mouth when they weren't expecting it. Once the dressing is done, stick it in the fridge and you are ready to make that quinoa salad. In the video, I'm using leftover quinoa, but if you need to make yours from scratch, you'll cook it a cup of quinoa in a 1.5 cups of water. That'll yield approximately 3 cups of cooked quinoa, which is what you want for this recipe. I know it seems to be like against math that 2.5 cups of ingredients would yield 3-ish cups of finished product, but the way that quinoa works is that it kind of puffs open when you're cooking it. Think about popcorn, right? A little bit of popcorn yields a lot of popped popcorn. Quinoa is the same, although not to that degree, but they're little seeds, just like popcorn kernels, and they burst open as they cook, which is how you end up with more volume at the beginning than at the end than you started with at the beginning. So grab that quinoa and put it into a large mixing bowl, and then add 3/4 cup of dried cranberries, a 1/2 cup of roasted cashews. You can use salted or unsalted roasted cashews for this recipe, it doesn't really matter. I would say that if you're using salted cashews, you might want to omit the salt from the dressing just so that you don't end up with a dish that's overly salted. Then add a 1/2 cup of chopped green onions. The green and the white parts are totally fine. And 1 chopped Hass avocado. Then you'll want to mix those ingredients together so you have a nice even mixture of grains and fruits and veggies. Now it's time to add the dressing. So grab that jar out of the fridge and pour it onto your salad and just toss everything together one last time to get it all evenly coated in that good citrusy dressing. And that's really it. You're ready to eat. The next recipe we're making is a vegan spinach artichoke dip. This is one of my signature party food dishes, but it's also something I just love having around the house for snacking on. It works great with crackers or chips for dipping. It's also lovely as a sandwich spread, and I even sometimes will toss it, the unbaked dip, toss it with pasta for a quick and easy pasta dinner. This dairy-free dip is quick and easy to make, and if you watched my previous program for the library, then you will recognize the base of this dip as my garlic cashew cream sauce. I originally created this sauce for this recipe, but I've found that it really works well in all kinds of other applications anytime you want to add a garlic punch and a creamy texture to a recipe. To make the cashew cream, you just need a few ingredients. Start with soaked cashews. You can either use raw cashews or roasted. Salted is also fine. You're going to soak them in hot water for 10 minutes, and that soaking time, it'll dissolve pretty much all of the salt anyway, and you're going to pour off that soaking water. And the soaking time will soften up even roasted cashews enough that they'll blend up just as smooth and creamy as raw will. You might just have to blend a little bit longer. Transfer your cashews to the blender and then add a half a cup of water, 3 cloves of garlic, and about a tablespoon of lemon juice, which is the juice of half a lemon. Now it's time to blend. So I'm using a high-speed blender, which means that it took me about 60 seconds to blend this into a smooth, creamy sauce. If you're using a regular blender, it will still work, it's just going to take a little bit longer. Instead of blending for just the 1 straight minute and then being done, you just will stop every 45 seconds to a minute, scrape down the sides of your blender, and then blend again. The stopping and scraping down serves 2 functions. First of all, it gets anything that's kind of flown up to the top back down to the blades so you can get everything blended evenly. But it also gives your blender's motor a rest. If you have to blend this for like 3 to 5 minutes to get it creamy in your blender, that is a long time to blend without stopping, and that can burn out your blender, especially if it's a bit older, and I don't want that to happen to you. You have some options with the vegetables here. If you can't find or don't want to use both spinach and artichokes, just omit one and double the other so that you can do just a spinach dip or just an artichoke dip if you prefer. Grab yourself a 9-ounce bag of frozen spinach. You can either defrost this on the counter for a couple of hours, or you can just use the microwave to thaw it. If you do microwave it, just wait until it's cool enough to handle, because you are going to be getting a little hands-on with this spinach in a second. The thing about frozen spinach is that it's quite watery, and you don't want all of that extra water in your dip, because then you'll end up with a watery finished result. So what you're going to do is, once your spinach is cool enough to handle, actually get in there with clean hands, and you're basically just gonna wring it out. As you can see in the video, when I squeeze a handful of that spinach, a lot of water comes out. So what I do is I just grab handfuls, squeeze it until I get out most of the excess water, and then transfer it to my 8x8-inch baking pan. Once you've gotten all the excess moisture out of your spinach, drain a can of artichoke hearts, and then chop those up into bite-sized pieces and transfer them to the same baking pan. Next, add a half cup of nutritional yeast. If you're new to nutritional yeast, don't worry. It's just a different kind of yeast. It is a great source of vitamin B12, which is definitely a plus, but it also is great at thickening sauces and giving them like kind of a cheesy flavor. Now add the cashew cream to the pan and then fold all of the ingredients together until you have a nice, even mixture. Once you've folded in all the ingredients, just season with salt and pepper to taste, and it's time to bake. Bake this dip at 350 for 20 to 30 minutes. You're basically trying to get a nice browned crust on the top. I baked the one in the video for 30 minutes because I like my dip pretty well done, but it's totally up to you. If you're using this as a pasta sauce, like I mentioned at the beginning, don't bake it. Just take the uncooked dip and toss it with half a box of cooked pasta of your choice. Once the dip comes out of the oven, you're ready to serve. I like to serve this with crackers and carrot sticks for dipping. It's also great with bagel chips. I wouldn't serve this with like kind of a regular potato chip or even a ruffled chip. It would taste delicious, but because this dip has big chunks of kind of heavy vegetables, that kind of a thin chip does tend to break in there, and then it becomes more of a hands-on experience than you probably want, especially right now. I hope that this video answered all of your burning questions about how to eat more plant-based or go vegan, and about the recipes that we covered. If you have any questions that I didn't address in the video, feel free to leave a comment below, or you can go to my website and contact me. I also encourage you to go to the library website and check out more of their online resources and virtual programs at DeKalblibrary.org. Happy cooking!